I don't know if we're starting. It's hard for me to tell. Okay, good. We're live. Hello, everyone. Wow, I've been standing here for the last 5 minutes, and I totally distracted myself and realized now I'm a minute late. So, um, welcome to April. Um, the trash is being collected as we speak right now, so that's totally distracting my squirrel brain. But I will. I'll get my thoughts together. Uh, excuse me. Um, I hope this day finds you well. Um, we're like, days away from taxes being due. And, April is always a squirrely month, I think. Um, but here we are, and the year is moving on. And today's topic is, you know, what's my topic today? It's kind of how to contend with, take care of yourself and your life when life happens. And I've had a lot of life happen in the last few months. Um, as probably most of you know, just by virtue of the fact that I'm kind of on social media, my dad died April 1st. Um, and his beloved wife, my stepmom, died about 6 weeks earlier on February 13th, day before Valentine's Day. Um, and so those are the very lifey things that have been going on for me. And, um, and I'm just aware that these kinds of lifey things go on all the time for everyone, everywhere. And it's always, what do I want to say? I don't mean to say it's an interruption. That's not really I think it shifts our focus, right, from the things that are right in front of us and the things that pull our attention with our careers and, the things we should be doing and the things we should, all the shoulds of life and the I'm behind and I should, get this thing and I need to work on that thing and why am I not working and where are all my auditions and, all of those things that we kind of customarily fill our heads, you know. And then life happens, right? And it puts everything back into perspective. And that's really kind of the thing I wanted to talk about today. Um, so before I really, really dig in, of course, please say hello and let me know that you're here. I see you, Genevieve, and I see you, John. Thank you so much for being ever so faithful and being here and showing up. I really, really appreciate it. Um, uh, I am kind of known in my family and my circle of friends as being um, a very composed person. And, that I'm, what do I want to say? That when things are rough, I don't get emotional, right? And I have to say, there's a big measure of that that's true. Um, I tend to, I'm just going to spill my guts to you. Like, why not, right? I tend to be a delayed responder, which can serve a person well in a crisis. Is I tend to be the person who's got my head together and can make decisions and can handle the immediacy of what is going on, right? While everybody else is falling apart. Who knows why these personality traits develop, but they do. And I tend to be a delayed responder, and I tend to fall apart when I'm by myself, right? That's kind of my MO, right? And again, that's all good for an introvert. I don't mind that. Um, and each of us is different, right? Each of us approaches these kinds of big lifey things the way that we do. And so a part of what I want to say is um, when lifey things happen to you, like really try not to judge yourself about how you handle things. It's hard. I think sometimes people look at me and go like, how come she's not upset? more? How come she's not more upset? You know? And um, then the truth is, our upsetness and things like this just come in different forms, is all, really. Because through the last month, I'll say this, I have probably, no, I have not, I didn't audition for a solid month. A solid month. Like, in my world, that's like 200 auditions, give or take, you know? And when I don't audition, I don't work, you know, because most of the things I book because I audition. Like, it's, you know, I always like to say to people, because there's this myth, you know, that you arrive at a certain level or you've been at it long enough and your career just comes to you. And that's just not true, you know. I, like so many of my colleagues who've been at this for a long time, you know, I have to audition. And if I don't audition, I don't work, right? That's just the truth. That's just the nature of the beast. Very, very rare, seriously rarefied air for people who just get handed bookings, right? So anyway, so now I know, like part of my way of coping was I can't handle getting in the booth and reading an audition. I can't handle it. I don't wanna, I'm not going to, right? So I just, you know, I just delete everything, right? And after about a month, I got home from all the traveling and all the everything. You know, I was like, all right, you know, and then I got home from VO Atlanta, and I didn't really audition during that period of time, you know, because I was too busy looking for my people to sit down and talk to, because that was more important to me. um, you know, I came home from VO Atlanta. Then my dad died a couple days later, and poof, there was another week of like not, you know, not auditioning, right? But at a certain point, it was like, all right, get back in there and do this thing. And, you know, you think you have a handle on, stuff, and you have some perspective, and life is moving on, right? And, you know, only come to realize that when I started auditioning, I auditioned for a thing that I'm not allowed to audition for, because I have a conflict, because I have a contract, you know, and booking that thing would have been in violation of my contract. And I wasn't paying attention because I had lost my mind. That's how I cope, right? Like, I just sort of slowly lose my mind. I'm not thinking, I'm not present. I'm not crying and I'm not emoting. I'm just not present, right? Anyway, so I auditioned for this thing, and then I end up booking the thing. It was like, oh, that's so great. I booked that thing. Oh my God, I can't book that thing. I can't even read that thing. Like, oh my God. I had to call my manager, and I was like, I don't think I'm allowed to do this, you know? And it was sort of like, then the next day my agent called, and they were like, yeah, you what are you doing? But I mean, it all worked out in the end, right? Because I realized that this job that I've had, they actually didn't renew my contract, so I wasn't under contract. I was just month to month, you know, and I realized, okay, I'm not in breach of contract, so I can do the thing. But oh my God, what a mess it caused for me, for my agent, for manager, for the, you know, the network, it was like, and really the lesson in that for me was to, like, I really was beating myself up for that, right? This is like, oh man, like, pay attention, you know, and, you know, the goodness of the people that I work with, agent, manager, you know, the goodness of the people I work with really kind of saved the day, and reminded me it's okay. Like, it'll all work itself out. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna handle it. We've got it, right? We have it. So you pay attention to your life, right? And you pay attention to your family, and we'll take care of it. Hang on, I have to close my door because my dog has now lost a grip. Hang on. Hello. Um, and so I guess this is the message that I want to impart, that I'm not upset, that I passed on 200 auditions. That's life. I did have more important things to think about and more important things to do. And it's not like, but I want to be clear about this. It's not like I have money coming in. Again, like I need to work, So it's not like, oh, I can just sort of sit back and relax and the money's pouring in. Not the case. Okay. Like I'm, again, I say it in, I am a journeyman voice actor. I'm in the trenches, right? So, but nonetheless, there's a sense of, if I may borrow a slogan, you know, where I really just needed to trust that everything is going to be okay and that it's just a season and that it is okay for me to grieve in the way I grieve and lose my mind the way I lose my mind when I grieve, right? Like that, and that there is an act of bravery in that, right? Like you must take care of yourself and cope the way that you cope, and know that it is a season. It's just a season, and that things change, and you know we sort of, if I can say it sort of poetically, right? We have to acknowledge and live through the winter of a circumstance in order that spring might arrive. Yeah, you don't get spring without winter, and so my dog is now at the door. I love her. Okay, are you coming in? All right. Nice. Say hello to everyone. I do love her. She's just, I'm her emotional support human. So things are a little twisted there, but I do love her. Anyway, I think it's mostly it's it, I really just intend this to say that you are allowed to experience your life and the things that come with life. And birth comes with life, and um, sorrow comes with life, and hurt comes with life, and tragedy comes with life, and death comes with life, and then new things come again. And through all of it, the lifey part is actually the most important part, you know? And so I want to encourage you to not be afraid when, as my friend Carrie says, when life gets lifey. Um, I do, Susan, yes, if you don't let it out, it'll sit inside you and come out another way. That is very true. That's true. Um, and I do want to say, right, like it does. I do express myself, and I do allow myself to grieve. I just do it privately. I'm just more of and again, I don't know why. I don't understand all of the workings of my psychology, but that's what it is, and I've sort of accepted that about myself. Like, yeah, I'm the person in the room who holds it together, and then when I get home and I'm by myself, that's when I lose a grip, and that's all good, and I got no problem with it, right? So it is true. It is true. So I want to just say to you that my my dad was a great guy, complicated, difficult, ornery, altruistic, big dreamer. And I want to say this. This is something else I think that people kind of look at me askew, you know. My dad lived to be 95, and he was never sick, never sick, never got any disease, no cancer, no heart disease, no nothing like that. A week before he died, he was sitting up in bed reading the Anchorage Times, sharp as a tack, right? His mind perfectly good, working. A few days before he died, he told my sister, he said, my friend Ron is coming over and he's picking me up and we're going to go out for Mexican food. And my sister was like, yeah, Dad, you're in level 4 assisted living. They're not going to let you out. He had, he, he had gotten, he had gotten pneumonia a few weeks earlier. And that's when they discovered a aortic tear, and then did a scan and found some blood clots in his lungs, and it was sort of like, okay, so you have to be careful in that instance, right? So even doing things like getting up, getting in your wheelchair, and going out to the public space where he was living is like taxing, right? And so my sister was like, yeah, that's not happening, Dad, and he said, well, Ron's coming to get me, and my sister was like, well, that's not, I think he said, I don't care. I don't care, and my sister was like, well, what about Ron? You don't want to do that to your friend Ron. You're going to go to the Mexican restaurant and fall over and have a heart attack and die, and just like have Ron have to contend with that. My sister, they're funny together. They're so funny. And then my dad was like, well, that's a good point. So my sister called Ron and said, Ron, why don't you just pick up some Mexican food and bring it over, and you guys can have it at the table in his room, and they did. And so one of the last pictures that I have of my dad is him sitting out like he's just sitting at a table eating Mexican food. And let me tell you, my friends, 72 hours later, he was gone. And it felt to me like he just decided, like, yeah, that's what I want for my last meal. And I'm good, ready to go. I miss my wife. I don't want to be in a hospital bed. I don't want to eat this crappy institutional food. So I'm out. And so for me, I'm like, what is tragic about that death? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. My father lived a good, beautiful, meaningful life. And he loved very deeply, and was loved very deeply by many. And once his wife was gone, it was sort of like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. And he's lived enough. And so because I'm kind of resolved, in my relationship with him, and I got to say all the things I needed to say, which was beautiful. And I highly recommend it. You never know when somebody's going, like, you don't know. So you have to tell the people that you love them. You have to say sorry for the things that you're sorry for, regardless of what anybody else's response is going to be, right? You have to do those things to clear your own life, so that, and I'll again speak for myself, right? Like, so that when my father died, I was like, it is well with my soul, all is well. And I'm confident, Susan, that you kind of intimate here. It's like, it'll come out as it comes out. It'll come out when I see a particular thing or hear a particular song. And I thought for sure on Easter that I would kind of lose a grip, but the church service I went to on Easter, and I love Easter, it's my absolute favorite holiday. Why? Because, it is the epitome of second chances, right? And getting to start over and spring and just all the new possibilities, right? Which is just my favorite thing about life. And but they didn't sing any hymns. Like there were no hymns of my childhood, and I'm confident had there been hymns of my childhood, I would have just bawled my little eyes out, which would have been great. But perhaps next year. Um, but there's something about that, that was so important and so beneficial to be able to say the things that you need to say, and I just highly recommend, right? And I think I know I'm kind of straying off topic, um, but that is a piece of it is a piece of how we care for ourselves in the midst of one of the great transitions of life, so that you tend to your relationships and you tend to them uh, in lieu of tending to your career sometimes. For the first time ever, I told my major affiliate client, like, I cannot turn this in for you. You need to use your secondary voice. I can't do it. Right? And I didn't know what they would say to that. Again, because, as I remembered, I wasn't on contract with them anymore. So that might have been oh, all right, well, we can't rely on her, but it wasn't, because generally speaking, people are good and they understand, But but I had no regrets about that. It was sort of like, well, if I lose this job, I lose this job, but I'm not leaving. I'm not going to go set up my gear in some closet in the hospital. Like, no, it's not that important. Sitting with my dad is, you know. Um, and that is really kind of the message of the day, that just how important it is to let go all the extraneous things um, and allow even for the built-in backups to be put to use, right? Stations have backup voices. Um, Commercial producers have second choice people. Um, your It's very likely that um, the production that you're working on for a corporate narration can wait a week. It's very likely, right? And so, in all of that, I would just say, don't be afraid to care for yourself and take the time that you need to contend with any of the myriad events that happen to us in the midst of our lives. So, um, let's see. Let's see what comments we have here. This too shall pass, indeed. Um, I love how you learn to be kind to yourself. I find I'm only now starting to grow that way. Yeah. Remember, I'm 61. I haven't always been kind to myself, but I am learning. The older I get, the kinder I am. So, with each wave of grief is also a moment of deep love. It's very true. Grief usually comes with a memory of something that you treasured. I mean, my sister last night was, you know, she was walking through their house, kind of like, is there anything here that you want? Kind of a thing. And she went into their closet and was like, oh, there are Dad's ties, on a tie rack. And it was like, oh, that like hit me between the eyes, because when I was a little girl, that's all I ever got him. I'd say, what do you want for your birthday, Daddy? And he's like, a tie. I would love a tie. And I got my dad, he came to count on his daughters giving him ties, right? For his birthday, for Father's Day, for Christmas. He had a million ties. And I was like, get my focus back here. Um, and I was like, you know what? I would take those ties because I have an artist friend who could probably make something really beautiful with those ties. So, but yeah, that brought a little wave of grief, but also really beautiful memories, right? So, I'm not going to spend too much longer talking to you about all this, but But really, what I want to say is that, you know, don't be afraid to take care of yourself in whatever way you need to, in whatever way makes sense for as long as it makes sense, you know. And again, waves will come and waves will go, um, and the people who love you and respect you and know who you are will understand. So, um, anything else? I know it sort of is like it's a heavy topic, but if you have a voiceover question that's burning, on the tip of your tongue, please don't be afraid to bring it up, because I will answer. And you can also hang on to it until next week if that feels more comfortable. So, thank you for sharing yourself so openly. You're leading beautifully. Thank you, Susan, so much. I appreciate it. Um, I'll say this too, right? Like I do, I do silly things like forget to tell people whenever I have something running that's actually accessible. So I want to say I did the, I announced, it wasn't a live announce, it was a pre-record announce, but I did the announce for the Grammy tribute to the Beach Boys, which I was just looking up. I guess it was Sunday, I think it was. I was like, I wonder when that airs, and I looked it up, and it's like, oh, it's airing right now, and it's halfway over. Like again, right, not paying attention. But then I did discover it will air again on MTV on April 17th. Check your local listings, and then it's also streaming now on Paramount Plus. So it's there if you're interested in seeing it. It's actually a really great show if you like the Beach Boys. I thought the artists that they chose to pay tribute they're good. They're good, really good artists, and they honor the music, but they have their own. They are the artists that they are. I think about Brandy Carlisle and John Legend, and it's really great, interesting artists. So it's a good show. Aside from yours truly, getting to say things like this is CBS, like, which is really fun. Um, but it's really the show that is fun. So okay, yes, Brian. Um, when life happens and you need to take a break, how do you get back into the rhythm of working? Yeah, I think you do that one little piece at a time, and you have a lot of patience for yourself, and a lot of patience for yourself, and you take the steps as you're able to take them. I know for myself, that has kind of manifested in my looking and saying, okay, well, I have like 6 auditions in my inbox, but I think I can only do these two. And I do those two, or maybe today I just don't do any of them. And then maybe the next day I have a bit of energy and I can do them. And so I do them. But I think it is with a lot of, again, kindness towards yourself and the recognition that, you know, as people have said, right, grief comes in waves, things happen, and the way we process our feelings, they come in waves. And so some days we just can't even get out of bed, and other days, um, other days, it's like, oh, I have a little energy. I think I could do that. And so I would say you get back into the rhythm slowly, and as your mind, heart, and body kind of lead you. Sometimes I will say that because I've experienced this. I have had over the course of my life a few bouts with depression, and I know that it's harder to do that when, for whatever reason, you sink into a particular space, and then it's really hard to get out of. And in that case, I think it's good to get help. It's good to have friends that you can confide in, who can, who see you, who see you, and know when you might need a hand. And I would say don't be afraid to ask for help. because all of us need it now and again, every last one of us, you know. Um, and uh, so, you know, the longer short answer is you you find the rhythm as you can find the rhythm, and you are kind to yourself in the process of it. And you know, and also don't be afraid to share with the people for whom you work. You know, my agents, like, and the people with whom I have steady work, it's like, just a heads up, here's what has happened this week. Here's what's happened. This is what I'm doing. If I don't get to this, this is why. You know, and so, and then they always come back and say, take your time, you know, take care of yourself, do what you need. We're here for you, right? But they can't offer that unless I share it, right? So that's my part. I have to be willing to be vulnerable enough to share it so that other people can extend a helping hand. So um, I hope that answers your question, Brian. Thank you for asking it. Hi, Susan. Um, yeah, I saw you all over VO Atlanta, but we never connected. But that's the nature of that. That's the nature of that conference. So um, there's always next year. So anything else, my friends, in this last minute or two? Um, I don't think so. Joanne, I didn't say hello to you. Hello, Joanne. Um, yeah, okay. We're going to call it good. All right. If you're watching this on the replay, thank you for doing so. And feel free to ask questions in the comments, even if you're watching it on replay. And I will come back and address. I will look and I will see if there are things that I can answer. And if anyone asks a question of anyone else and you have the answer, please feel free to chime in. That is what we're here for. So I hope you have a I hope that you, oops, is there another? There we go. You're welcome, Genevieve. I can't remember what I was just going to say. That's it. I hope you have a fantastic remainder of the week. I hope that you've gotten your taxes done. If not, giddy up. And may you be ever blessed if you happen to owe money. May it come to you unexpectedly. And if you get a refund, congratulations. And if you're one of those people that breaks even, teach me. How do you do that? Anyway, I love you all, and I will see you next week. Take good care.